Get ready. The DE Talk podcast starts now. Insightful conversations and dialogue helping you put the human factor back in HR.
Hello and welcome to a special Recruit Rooster takeover, the DE podcast today. I'm Tyler, the Director of Product Development here at Recruit Rooster / Rocket Build, and today I am joined by my colleagues Elliott Obermaier and Jeff Ringgenberg. So I'll let you guys to intro yourselves really quick before we dive in.
Absolutely. Yes, my name is Elliott. I'm one of the sales associates at Recruit Rooster by Direct Employers here. And I'm super excited to talk about this. Part of why I was selected to talk a little bit about the CRM product and how it connects to music in this capacity was that before working at Recruit Rooster, I actually spent some time in the music industry and the music world. And weirdly enough, a lot of the skills and services that I learned working with distribution and specifically online distribution like Spotify translates very directly into recruiting.
Wow, that was a great intro. This is Jeff Ringgenberg. I am a product manager at Recruit Rooster / Rocket Build. I am not coming from the music background, so you do not want to hear me or my Spotify playlist, but I do run the product lead for Talent Engage, so I can talk all about the product side and how it relates to Spotify. So how's that?
It's pretty darn awesome. You're definitely more technically savvy than I am, Jeff.
Hey, I can strum the guitar, so every once in a while I might be able to keep up, but not for very long. Anyway, I digress.
All right, well, another podcast, we'll get the band together and we'll play some music and see how that plays out. So, well, cool. Thank you guys for joining me today. Kind of on the topic similar to what Elliott talked about is thinking about how our recruiting strategies can be similar to that of, say, Spotify or Apple Music or these other platforms that we use to listen to music today. So, just imagine if finding the right job was as effortless as discovering, your new favorite song, or picture a recruitment journey where every job recommendation feels perfectly in tune with who you are. Just like that weekly Spotify playlist that somehow nails your vibe. Today, we're diving into how employers can use data and technology to create a recruiting experience that's personalized, intuitive, and as addictive and as great as that playlist that gets recommended to you. So stay tuned with us today as we explore how the world of job hunting could mirror one of our favorite streaming platforms. So today, I'm going to ask Elliott and Jeff here some questions to get their thoughts on this topic, and so we can all get a better understanding of how we can put our CRM and recruitment marketing strategies to work and better connect with our job seekers overall. So if you guys are ready, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
All right, so question one, what are the core similarities that you see between a CRM or recruitment marketing tool and Spotify in terms of personalization?
I think a lot of the time it depends on the CRM in question, right? There are all kinds of ways that different CRMs really try to capture and retain job seeker data from those visiting. But the most effective ones are as personalized as possible and have as much information. And this is really, I think, where the biggest similarities come into play is because Spotify or Apple Music or whatever the main ones, but Spotify was really, I think, the first to start capitalizing on this data-oriented marketing approach. They capture every single bit and piece of musical data about their listeners that they can possibly use, because in turn it allows them to expand their app and create a much more engaged user experience. I think one of the biggest advantages that a company like Spotify does within this is it makes everything feel so personalized, right? Like you were mentioning earlier, every single playlist that you has is recommended to you based on previous artists that you were listening to, previous genres that you were listening to. Spotify even has AI options now to where it's like already on playlists that you personally create, adding songs that suggest based on any sort of factors such as genre, BPM, anything like that. And I think the best CRMs similarly mirror that, right? You want to create an experience for your job seekers and for people that are interested in your company that really showcases how your company might fit them and might already kind of align with their core values or their core skills from a job seeker standpoint.
Yeah, gone are the days of kind of listening to, the radio, which is just here's a bunch of music that you get that might kind of fall in line with stuff you're interested in because it falls in that same genre. But I think today, much like you said with Spotify, it's able to kind of start to listen to, or pay attention to what kind of music you're interested in, the trends that they're seeing, and then it's positioning that music that's really specific to the type of stuff that you have, even down to like maybe your mood for that day. And I think that's where we're seeing some change in the recruitment marketing field as well. Is like, how do we use those tools to look at data, to understand the trends, to understand individuals, so that when we're communicating with them or marketing to them or sending emails or SMS or whatever, that we're really focused on those unique aspects of those individuals versus more of a broad approach that maybe we would have used in the past. So.
Totally. I think in a lot of ways, radio kind of reminds me of a job board where it's just very, very generalized jobs being listed, top 40 hits being played, and nothing that's really going to stick out or maybe feel as personalized and tailored to the actual job seeker themselves. So I think that's a really apt comparison. And the companies that are going to be standing out the most, right, are the ones that are thinking in a much more forward-oriented approach of how are we connecting to these job seekers. And especially one of the more interesting topics I always think is like the younger generation of job seekers, right? The Gen Zers that in 2025 are going to make up 25% of the workforce as a whole. That's a generation of people that have constantly received all kinds of marketing that is data mined marketing, right? It's marketing based on Amazon suggestions. It's marketing and ads based on what they've liked on Facebook or Instagram. It's a generation that's really a lot more used to technology and companies catering to them based on the data, because so much more data is out there about them. If you're reaching those job seekers, you really have to kind of keep in mind with that approach in order to stay ahead of competition, really.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, that kind of leads me into the next question. How, and playing along the lines of what we just talked about, but how do data-driven insights kind of fuel that personalization in both recruitment marketing and music streaming? So, what types of data are collected and how do they inform kind of the recommendations for job seekers and listeners alike?
Yeah, Jeff, can you talk a little bit? I know I can speak to the Spotify side, but you've definitely built out more as far as what you're actually collecting and the kind of forms and whatnot that you're using through the actual CRM tools.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I think, we're not doing quite what Spotify is doing. Like Tyler kind of mentioned the mood side of things. Like I heard that they had a patent that came out a couple years ago where they can basically take the voice biomarkers that a user is kind of talking to and then translate that into the type of mood that they're feeling and then conveying the music that fits that mood. Similarly, on our end, we're really trying to tap into the data that we are uncover, which would be like, what their interests are, what, anything that we can pull from their resume, anything that we can pull from, their engagement. So if they're a high engagement, meaning they're, kind of engaging with the content that we're sending them, whether that be one-on-one messages or a campaign message or interacting by clicking or opening an email, we can then cater the messaging based upon that engagement. So if it's a high engagement individual, we can, kind of put the right type of engagement or right kind of content in there that's going to meet them where they are. Also based upon what we know about them in terms of the role that they have or the role they're seeking and the kind of the search queries that they're putting in to discover new jobs that meet them. So that's kind of some of the things that we're doing in that regard.
Yeah, I think also kind of looking at some of these new, trends that we see with like location, if data is submitted based on specific locations or trends in the type of jobs that people might be searching for and the data that we're able to track along that also allows us to kind of build a better data set. And also when we're kind of responding back to those individuals, personalizing it based on maybe the needs we have in those areas, or trying to find ways that we can, find a similarity or correlation between that data. So yeah, a lot of good aspects of the new tools that we can use to collect. And I think very similar to how music is, like we kind of stated before. In what ways do a CRM and recruitment marketing tools engage and retain job seekers? Similar to how Spotify keeps users coming back. So you don't just jump into Spotify, listen to the song, and then go off. A lot of times you're going to come back to the app because you're looking for those new personalizations. You're looking for those new recommendations. It's Friday, a new album released. You want to see what's out there. What kind of things can we find correlation between a CRM and those marketing tools that may be similar to want to bring recruiters back into the system that they're using, but also kind of focus on the job seekers wanting to engage in that communication on both sides?
Absolutely. I think Spotify does such a phenomenal job. And, one of the advantages that they have over any company that is any company's talent acquisition team, right, is that people are constantly giving them data very willingly by listening to music. And it's a lot harder, as Jeff was kind of talking about earlier, to get people to release their information to a lot of companies that they're interested in. But something that they do really, really well with the information that they have is just creating consistent communication strategies based on that personalization, whether it's upcoming events near you based on location, or, like a concert that might be in your area of an artist that you've listened to within the past few months, or if it's creating that regular weekly or monthly playlist, or sending your yearly wrapped on Spotify, something like that, that just really kind of keeps you at the front of mind, even if it's not an aggressive, we think you should listen to this song, right? Or this is the next artist that you're going to love kind of prompt message. I think a lot of CRMs can mirror that in a way that's really, really effective, whether it's, we just had these jobs open up and we know that you haven't submitted new data to us in a while, or that you haven't applied to anything recently. But I just wanted to send you an email about these open development positions that just came up at our company. And doing that with a level of regularity that kind of keeps your company front of mind without seeming promotional towards a new product or anything like that. I think it's really similar to Spotify, of just finding creative ways to use that data, whether it's a location-based thing. If you have in-person job fair within X amount of miles of the job seeker data that you've received from your career site or other opportunities and other data gathering areas. I think that those kinds of consistent communications are what really sets Spotify apart, but then also is what's going to keep a lot of companies at the front of mind for job seekers.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Elliott. I think consistency is key. Like, content is one thing, but you got to be consistent with that content and do it in a smart, strategic way. And that, whether that is kind of checklists of what you can think about as a job seeker, whether that's interviewing tips, there's all kinds of ways that you can really kind of elevate content to job seekers. And then kind of going on the recruiter side, I think that really comes down to consistency in terms of being proactive. Mm-hmm. I think as a recruiter, you really need to get in there and see who's been active, what kind of engagement they have, what do you know about them that can really personalize the content that you send, and then get into a cadence of sending it. So one of the features that we have is called roadmaps, where it's a automated drip campaign, and you can really set up kind of messaging in a strategic way that aligns with their engagement, and just getting them, like I said before, kind of getting the right content to them at the right time based upon their engagement. So I think that, like you said, consistency is key, and you got to make sure you have the right content at the right time.
Thanks for the insights on that. So let's move on to the next one. How do CRM and recruitment tools segment and communicate with job seekers? So, kind of think about playlists and how we can segment music into certain groups. What are similar ways we might do that with our job seekers today with the data that we're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the more interesting things, and this is less about playlisting as it is more distribution and like marketing from an artist standpoint, but one of the tools that Spotify offers artists is kind of analysis of geographic location of listeners, right? And a lot of times what artists would use then, say we had an upcoming show in Indianapolis and there were a group of 500 monthly listeners in Indianapolis that had listened to X band's music in the last month. Spotify would then allow you to create kind of a customized ad for only those Indianapolis listeners, showcasing what the show is, where the venue is in Indianapolis, and that it's near them, right? And I think that that's definitely something that a CRM can do if it's capturing geographical data as well, right? If you have a position that comes up for an opening in Cleveland, Ohio, it doesn't really make sense to reach out to a lot of job seekers in California, even if your company is nationwide, right? And I think that that's one of those areas that can really make you stand apart. Like, I see job notifications all the time from LinkedIn that says, oh, you should apply to X, Y, and Z marketing role in the middle of, Toledo. And I'm nothing against Toledo, but I wouldn't want to relocate and anything like that. But if a job came up in Indianapolis, I'm a lot more likely to at least take a peek around it because I know that it's similarly located to where I'm already at. And that's definitely something that if you have that with your CRM and you're really utilizing the right kind of CRM, and Jeff, I know you can speak to this more, but creating customizable campaigns within those CRMs that really target specific data groups of location or job experience, then all of a
Yep.
sudden you're sending this really personalized and tailored message.
Yep. Yeah, spot on. I mean, the geography thing is certainly one thing. Like we have, segmentation through lists. And so you can create a list based upon the location. Let's say there's you're holding a job fair and in that particular location, you can really segment it based on that and send strategic messages to that group of people. You could also segment in a myriad of other ways too. You could do it based upon the category. So if you've got, a group of software engineers, then you have content that's really aligned with what they're seeking, then, kind of do it based on that. Or maybe they're opted in for SMS and you want to send a text messaging campaign. You can kind of just hone in on those particular set of users as well. So there's a myriad of ways that you can segment using lists and then kind of strategically message those individuals.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, genres with music. It's if you're into types of genres, obviously there's segments of those genres that you might recommend to folks. But, if you're into, say, pop and, metal might not be the space that you want to get into to listen to. Maybe not, but, there may not be some overlap. So as you kind of look at recommendations for job seekers, you want to try to find things that fit into similar aspects of the music they've been listening to. Same with music, you want to start to ease someone into those different genres. So you can certainly explore that as you look at the data, you look at the groups that they get kind of partner placed into, and start to move those individuals into lists and then build your marketing campaigns, build your communication strategies, build your whatever that might look like, kind of just the lead gen off of how you're segmenting those individuals for sure. Let's get into something that's kind of a hot topic right now, AI. So can you describe how machine learning or AI are used in kind of the both recruitment marketing tools and maybe what we see with Spotify and other music services, what they might be doing with their recommendation systems? Like, what roles do you think these technologies are playing in refining the recommendations over time? And like, how can we use that to enhance those strategies that we might be introducing into the market?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Spotify side and I'll take the recruitment side on this one?
That sounds perfect. I don't know enough about the recruitment side as I'm sure as you do, because you've actually worked with the AI in our tools.
Sweet. Well, Spotify, you go first, because that's, I'm very curious how Spotify does this.
Yeah, I think a lot of what Spotify uses is generative AI and personalization technology to create those personalized music tastes that you were talking about earlier from a playlist standpoint, anything like that. They can basically, if they're using that generative AI to learn and gather information about factors of what the music that you're listening to, whether that's genre, whether that's mood, tempo, key, anything on that aspect, they're going to be able to really, really understand and dive into who their listener is based on AI, and doing that at such a fast rate, right? Because it's actually, there's not a human behind it thinking, oh, this is what Jeff likes to listen to, and let me spend my whole day analyzing what Jeff's listening habits are and then moving on to Tyler, right? The AI is giving them something so much faster. It also they use it to create personal playlists based on text descriptions, right? So if you created a acoustic chill playlist, they could analyze songs that had acoustic descriptors, or, go to other playlists with acoustic ideas, right? And use that to offer suggestions about songs to add to that. So they've been using it for a while, especially from, like most companies, AI has been around for more than the AI boom that we've seen over the last few years. And then I think one of the more obvious answers from Spotify for any users out there over the last year, that when their Spotify Wrapped came in 2023, the little Spotify DJ that would talk about your listening habits or kind of regurgitate some of that information and then suggest songs to you, that was a completely AI tool. So there are definitely a lot of ways that Spotify has been using it as a company.
Yeah, for sure. So on our side, we're kind of getting into this in a couple of different ways. So we've got some Gen AI with kind of integration with ChatGPT, and provide kind of an AI composer side of things, and kind of allows recruiters in a compliant way just try and kind of get it for inspiration. Not that we want them to just send out just completely AI driven messaging, but it does provide some inspiration and allows them to kind of write messages a little bit faster. And then more on the category matching side, when we're kind of utilizing the search queries. So when a job seeker goes in and they put in a search to find jobs that meet what they're looking for, we are then kind of predicting what kind of category they fit into. We may have those categories already matched, but sometimes they're outlier words. And so we, based upon a certain level of accuracy, can suggest other categories that may align with that particular job seeker. And on the recruiter side, they can then confirm that that category does in fact match what they're looking for. So that's one way we're doing it. Tyler, I was going to bounce it back to you as well, though, because you've been working a little bit on the job matching side of things as well. I wanted to kind of have you talk a little bit about that side of it.
Yeah, just kind of in a generalized stance. And I think, summing up what you guys talked about with AI in general, you look at how you can analyze stuff. If you're looking in the CRM, it can take a long time to sift through a bunch of data that you have for job seekers and finding the correlation between those job seekers, their interests, and the jobs that you might have can be quite a task, because you're looking at the jobs, you're looking at the data, and you're trying to flip back and forth and see who those right individuals might be. The thing that we're starting to explore and look into is like, how can we leverage AI to not only analyze our job seekers that have come in and get a better understanding of who they are, what they're interested in, where they're located, what their work history might look like, but how can we take that data and then go look at the jobs that we have available and kind of create that correlation between them, really speeding up that process, giving that more of an analytical kind of approach from a computer's mind, for lack of a better term, to see where those correlations might be, and then being able to take that data and start to reach out to those individuals or make suggestions to those individuals. There might be opportunities that their work history lines up with a job that we have that might fall into a realm that they didn't even think that they were, qualified for, capable of, anything like that. So just being able to see those correlations and those patterns and understanding that through more of a data analysis perspective, I think is going to be really interesting. And I think the same goes for music too. I mean, I know when I use a service and it's presenting music to me on playlists, like chill playlist or something, it might present some music to me that I'm like, well, I never thought I would listen to that, but it does kind of correlate and fall in line with stuff that I'm interested in, just based on the similarities and structure of songs and artist history, those kind of things. So I think there's a lot to be explored there, and it's a really exciting time to understand how that can work for talent acquisition as we move forward.
100%. I think, one of the more interesting aspects of AI that has always been brought up with people who are pretty, against AI is they'll talk about the lack of personalization, or how that a robot can't get to know you better anyway. And it's I don't think it's about using AI necessarily to replace getting to know the people or replacing an authentic experience, but it's about creating those extra steps and learning a little bit more about a person on a surface level. So from a job seeking standpoint, you can get to know your job seeker on that really, really in-depth level during the interview process, but you can kind of eliminate some of those initial steps, but also make them feel more comfortable by showing that you've learned a little bit about them to start, right? It's kind of like that old sales adage of you should look the person up on LinkedIn before you go into a meeting with them. So that way you can see if you went to college together or if you have any commonalities to find. And if you can use AI to find that ahead of the time and create some of those personalized messages or those customized campaigns, whether that's SMS or email, that's going to go a long way. I think one of the more interesting things that when we were researching this topic initially, it just came up how much personalized messaging meant to people. 57% of job seekers said that they were more likely to apply to the job if a recruiter reaches out personally, or that those personalized emails have, a 6 times higher open rate compared to just blanket open market communication. And that's definitely something that I think AI is really, really adept and strong at, is that icebreaker kind of information. And then you get to see the candidate more if it is actually a better fit later down the process when AI might not have as much of a use.
Yeah, certainly kind of sift through that data and get you to pinpoint the individuals. And then obviously you're opening up those communication lines to be much more personalized and authentic. So you touched on this a little bit about when to make the recommendations or presenting information to people, but how important do you think timing is to delivering that relevant content or recommendations? Do you think obviously you don't want Spotify serving up Christmas music to you too early, unless, you're Sierra, who works on our team, who's probably already listening to Christmas music a month ago. So you got to, each individual there. But, obviously the timing on that has got to be specific. And I think it's going to keep people engaged, and you don't want to be sending stuff at the wrong time or sending them too much, I guess, if that makes sense, because I think even that's going to turn them off. But what are your thoughts on kind of that, the delivering of the relevant content?
Totally. I think it's a little bit what Jeff touched on earlier of just being consistent and being accurate and being timely without being spammy, right? Having these job seekers information and being able to analyze it and see where they're from, see what experiences they have, really feel like you're getting to know these people. That doesn't mean that you should take all of that information and regurgitate it back onto them in the span of a week, right? You want to be very, very tactful and coy with the information that you have about those job seekers and let it be more of a personalized touch rather than hey, we have this information and now we're going to spam you with your own information and make it feel a little bit weird. And then they're never going to want to apply to your job because it feels like you're just an aggressive marketer, right? We've all had those moments where you mention something in conversation and then the Amazon ad for that exact product or something similar comes up right away in your email. And it's like, I don't really want to buy that. That just feels a little unnecessary, right? And I think that that's kind of similar from a CRM standpoint.
Yeah, I think about like real estate, they always say location, location, location. Well, I feel like even in real estate and everything else, it's timing, timing, timing. Because even if you've got like a perfect location, the timing just may not be right. So I think timing is incredibly important for, kind of getting to a job seeker at the right time. I also think on the content side, though, sending content just for the sake of sending content is not the right idea. I think you got to be really strategic with the type of content that you want to send and then the right time to send it. So like Elliott said, I think you got to be careful with sending too much and overloading them with content. But I do think that it goes back to that consistency standpoint. You got to be consistent with that content that you're sending out. And if you can, set the stage, try and set, totally. Whether it's a email, it's a weekly email or a monthly email, try and get it out about the same time so that users can look forward to getting it. I have certain, emails that I subscribe to. I'm always looking forward to it on a Thursday morning or whenever it comes out. I think that timing is key.
Yeah. And I think there's tools out there now today too that go above and beyond there where you can actually help create those pathways. So you actually put that into the job seekers' hands, let them kind of choose the frequency at which they're receiving stuff or the type of content or the type of messaging they might be receiving. So, utilizing those kind of tools in your CRM plan, I think can help with this as well, where it's a little bit more automated, but it allows the timing to be kind of put on the job seeker themselves versus you trying to play a guessing game all the time as well.
Yeah, and I'll just double click on that real quick. One of the things around the frequency of job alerts being sent, we do give the job seekers the option of, do they want to send those weekly or monthly or daily? And I will tell you that the vast majority of people want to see those daily because they don't want to miss a job. And so they send them out on a weekly basis, or that's when they get them. That's the vast majority of the job seekers what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that insight. How do feedback loops kind of enhance personalization in both of those industries? For instance, like Spotify uses skips and replays and ways that you can kind of gauge what an individual is doing with the songs and the albums that they're listening to. But how might that kind of correlate back to, say, a recruitment CRM? Like, what are we able to learn from candidate engagement patterns if you're seeing any on a daily basis?
That's a tough one. Think about that. Do you have anything on your end, Elliott? Let me keep thinking over here.
Yeah, I think, again, it's kind of like learning about what might require special attention, right? Immediately in my mind, if from a Spotify standpoint, right, if it's you realize that this song that was released is not generating a lot of traction or people are skipping it in the track listing order on an album, that might not be the song that you want to push as a single, right? Like that might not be the song that you want to use in an ad for an upcoming show. That might not be the song that you want to create a music video for. And I think it's kind of similar that you can learn, okay, if this is more desirable or less desirable, what does that mean from a talent acquisition standpoint, right? Like if we have pushed X amount of jobs and recognized that the developer position gets 100 applications and 100 clicks and people are so willing to apply for this, but the financial analyst role is only getting 5, even though we're sending that out to the same list of people. What does that tell us about our financial analyst role? Does it tell us from a job seeker standpoint that there are less qualifications for financial analysts and that there are less financial analysts out there? Or is our job description bad, right? Do we need more employee testimonial content so that people can actually engage with that job and actually envision it? Or is it something that, it's just, this is going to be harder to fill because it's in a more remote location? I think that we can use kind of that engagement with specific jobs to tell us more about how we might need to fill that job, or what we can do to maybe it's a pay increase if we need that job filled, right? That's some stuff like that. You can really start learning and reflect on your own positions if you see someone has really high engagement with it or not.
Yeah, I think the one that comes to mind is really the analytics side of things. If you can track, the type of content that has high engagement,
Totally.
double click on that content, continue to send that out. And conversely, if you're not getting a whole lot of engagement, maybe it's time to switch up that content or send it to a different group of people.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it can go even simpler than that sometimes, where, when you're looking at communication, you get opens and clicks and unsubscribes. That kind of data can give you an insight into, maybe this individual's frequency of receiving stuff. And we talked about frequency previously. Maybe they're getting too many emails. Maybe we need to look at ways that we can send them less. Maybe their messaging is just coming too frequently. They're not opening any of these emails. So maybe it's time to change it up. Maybe we delay for say a week or 2 weeks or even a month, and try to re-engage those individuals to catch them at a time where maybe they're more interested in the positions that we have, because they may have signed up for, say, a job alert or some way to receive communication from a company about jobs that might be open, but there's a lot of factors involved. Maybe it's the holidays, maybe they're busy with kids' sports, so they just don't really have time to put their minds on that stuff. So switching that up and trying to communicate with them at a different time might actually kind of re-engage them. And I think we see that based on just how they're operating with the data that we're sending to them. So there's a lot of things that can be tried there, I guess, just by exploring what that feedback is coming in and looking like.
Yeah.
So what kind of metrics or KPIs are most important, you think, to Spotify and recruitment marketing tools? What similarities in, I guess, success indicators for retaining and engaging users might there be?
Yeah. I'll take this one. I think Spotify side, they just want to see plays, right? They want to see the amount of times that one particular song or album is being listened to. And I'm sure that Elliott has a lot more than I do in terms of the insights that Spotify can pull from. But I just kind of think about, like, they want to hear the plays, and we want to see the applies. We want to see that they're clicking on that apply button and really going for a job. So, a lot of the tools we have are for early passive job seekers. And so once they click that apply button, then we know that they're actively interested in that particular job. So that's kind of the two sides there. So the play and the apply.
Sure. Elliott, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head there, Jeff. I think that, like, a lot of, with Spotify specifically, it's figuring out what people are engaged with. It's kind of understanding, again, it's the analytics of understanding your audience, right? And that's what's gonna be a lot more fulfilling as a whole.
And forgive me, Elliott, I just realized the right terminology should have been streams, right? The number of streams.
Yeah, I think that it might be the more technical term, but it's
all right. Fantastic. I want to get technical. We're technical today.
It is. We are a tech company. That's how that goes.
All right. So kind of shore it up here. Last item I have is, what are some challenges unique to recruitment marketing that might differ from those that Spotify faces in user personalization? So, what kind of behaviors might we see that are unique to someone who's looking for a job or interested in a job or interested in your business versus, an individual who's just trying to find the right song to play at a party for the night? What kind of impact and recommendations are made there just based on the insight you see?
I think this is the ultimate deciding factor, right, in this conversation, is the gravity of finding music. As much as I love music, right, and worked in it, is much less than providing somebody with a job, right? Music is so much more of a casual thing, and because of that, people are so much more willing to engage with it, right? It's easier, you're not telling them personalized information about